Hey guys, and welcome again to another episode of the Speak Easy podcast, where we go behind the scenes talking about what it means to be the successfully paid speaker or author. I am your host, Alex Spelzer, the Voice Coach Network, founder of the World Voice League, a virtual network of female entrepreneurs coming together to impact social change. So, I know you saw today's title, and it's how to really get out of your own way as a speaker. And now you gonna be like, well, no, we read the book. We read the book, or no, I'm listening to this, and no, I really need you guys to know that there's this mental block that really keeps you from going all in. It keeps you from asking the right questions, showing up in the right places, and saying yes to the right opportunities. So that's why I'm so excited to have our guest that'll be coming on today, who is Miss Brittany. Hey,
Brittany. Hey, everybody.
I'm excited to have our guest today because we're going to be speaking specifically on how you can get out of your own way for you to be prepared for 2020. With that being said, Brittany, let our viewers, listeners, and let them all know a little bit about yourself, and then we'll dive into today's topic.
All right. As she said, my name is Brittany Johnson. I am actually a licensed mental health counselor. So I have a practice in Southern Indiana. I am also the author of the book she mentioned, Get Out of Your Own Way, 21 Days to Stop Self-Sabotage. So I am excited to be here because I love helping people get out of their own way, whether it be people who come to me for therapy, who are just kind of stuck in some situations, stuck in their past because of trauma, or working with people who are trying to move their careers to the next level. And again, just are feeling this kind of stuckness. And then we start just, digging into it and realizing like, oh, wait a minute, I'm actually in my way. Let me do something with that. So that's kind of who I am in a nutshell. And so again, I'm happy to be here.
So we're going to dig right in and go like both feet jumping in.
Let's do it.
This idea of self-sabotage is one that really is not one that's talked about. Let's be honest. In any industry, as an entrepreneur, as just a parent, as just an individual, this is just still not something that we talk about. Is it because we're still fearful of, of telling people the truth that I'm the reason that I am not reaching my greatest potential?
Yes, I think really though it's because we're afraid. Like, who wants to admit that it's your fault? Like, if you think about any scenario, it's easier if you can say, "Oh, that happened because the right people wasn't in the room, or I didn't have enough money, or it was a person I was partnering with who did or didn't do something." So it's easier to kind of put the responsibility elsewhere. And when we have to like dig down and look at like, wait, actually it is something I'm doing. That's hard because self-awareness in itself is hard. So then you start talking about were you doing things wrong or not good enough or not perfect enough, or, that opens up a whole new door for people of like, no, I'm not going there. I'm going to keep blaming everything else and everybody else.
And that's interesting because a lot of times people think that right now we have this you have this like gap. You have the baby boomers,
mm-hmm.
and then you have Generation X, and then you got the millennials. And it's almost like, what the heck happened in the middle?
Right.
It's like the baby boomers went all in on different things. They, we all heard the stories, y'all. They had to walk 17 miles in the snow with one shoe in order for them to go to school. And I mean, reality check. And then they look at our millennials, and we're not even going to go into Generation Z, but they're looking at the millennials and going, like, are you going to fight for anything? Are you going to take responsibility? And so
right.
This big rift between the two, and we're like, no, let's come together.
Right. And I get confused on all the generational things now because they keep changing the dates. So like, I think at one point, people my age were considered millennials, and then they're like, no, you guys are going to be like Gen something, and then millennials are younger. And I'm like, look, I don't even know. all I know is between baby boomers and now, there's been a lot of shifts in who takes responsibility for what. And one of the things that we stopped teaching our kids and ourselves years ago was this idea of self-awareness, and this idea that I, as an individual, can make a difference in something. And so, regardless to who did it or didn't do it, that's the shift I've noticed between the generations.
So now thinking back on this journey and what it's been for you,
Mm-hmm.
I know what I had to go through in order to have that self-awareness, to be able to go back and apologize when I do something wrong, to be able to admit when I've made a mistake. It's difficult, but it's necessary.
Right.
What really initiated that change, or even just a greater insight into that whole realm for you?
So the initial change for me happened in graduate school, because the program I went through to become a mental health counselor, we had to take several classes on self-awareness, because our professors were big on, you can't help someone else if you can't sit in the room with your own mess, so to speak. And so we went through several courses where we had to kind of dig into ourselves and do that. And then after I left, graduate school, one of my favorite positions that I had was for an agency, and this agency was big on staff development. So part of that staff development was giving us all types of trainings, not just as therapists, but as people and as leaders and things like that. So we went through all types of training to become more self-aware. We even had to do, I remember one training, we had to send it to like 6 different people for them to grade us on certain categories. And then we had to sit in a room and hear what these people really thought of us, so to speak. And so that process for me is what helped me to be able to go in and say, okay, you know what? I can dig down and figure out where I'm making mistakes and what I can do differently in order to make things go better or go worse. Doesn't mean it's always easy, but I was able to, through those trainings and courses and all that, to be comfortable with it.
That's valuable.
It is.
I think because as we're moving into, we're about to be in that season of New Year, New Me, and
Oh,
vision
yeah.
board parties, and a lot of people have, this is the time of year where they're starting to rev up into that whole self-improvement mode.
Yep.
And they rev up now, and then they start like literally losing momentum by, February, by March. And it's just like, what happened?
Yeah.
There's so many different aspects of, what can bring us to that point where now we're losing momentum. What have you seen as the, like, I would say maybe the top 2 reasons people start losing that momentum, and so early after just getting started?
I'm gonna go just one reason, really. The number one reason, I mean, it's sabotage, but it's the mindset. If you don't change your thoughts about a situation or about things, then it doesn't matter how many times you go to the gym or how many seminars you take, how many people you talk to, how many coaches you hire. If you're not willing to sit with yourself and say, what am I thinking that is driving me to be in this spot, then you will lose momentum before you even got started, because newness wears off fast. I think, what do they say? New cars keep their scent, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? And after that, the new car smell is gone, and then you're trying to buy air fresheners to keep that smell going. Right?
Probably even less time if you have kids. It's probably like
right,
new car
right.
smell day 1. That's about it.
If you have young kids, just as soon as you drive off the lot,
That's it.
And so again, it goes back to, like, you have to switch this mindset to be looking at, what am I doing that's getting in my way? What am I doing that's sabotaging me and keeping me from this goal I really say I want? Because it's easy to write out and say, this is all the things I want to accomplish next year for this new year, new me. I want to do this, I want to do that. But when I start asking people, well, what are you actually doing to make that happen? Crickets. You can do 10 vision boards from now until January 1. But if that vision board doesn't have, I'm gonna sit with myself and see what thoughts I'm having that's driving this, it's just gonna be pretty sitting in that corner.
Oh, that part. I found that there were many years that I did vision boards where if it was on the wall at first, then it went from the wall to behind the couch. And I tell people often, it's one thing to have a vision board. It's another thing to actually be able to check things off of the vision board.
Yes. Yes.
Completely different. Completely different.
Completely different.
And so in moving towards saying, you know what, I'm no longer going to do this self-sabotage. I'm going to sit down. I sit down with myself. I figure things out. What's going to be my next plan of action?
So if you purchase the book, you will see in the book, there's actually a plan. So I'll walk you through, here's how we define sabotage. I'll go ahead and give you this one for free. There are 3 categories I use: perfectionism, not feeling good enough, and imposter syndrome. So then you start looking at asking yourself a series of questions that are in the book for you to identify which one of the 3, or is it all 3, that you kind of fall into as to how you sabotage yourself. And then from there, we start changing that self-talk, because that's the second thing that's going to be important for you is, now I know what the issue is. Let me change how I talk to myself to make that better. And then it wraps up with a 3-week plan for you to implement these new skills that you learn in the book on how to get out of your own way and stop sabotaging yourself.
Now that's valuable. That makes a lot of sense. Because what most people think is that as soon as I get the book, day one is where I start. Like I'm starting with whatever action you tell me to do on day one. But you're actually saying, no, there's some work that needs to be done before you get to day one. Yes. Day one is when you start taking action. But there's some things that needs to happen before that action.
Definitely.
I think people miss that part. I think I think there's like a disconnect, and they go and they have all the great ideas of how they can possibly change, but that they definitely have that disconnect between that and the action. So that sounds like an amazing book for them to be able to really see some changes in 2020, because we know that's the big thing. We want to make sure that 2020 is different than 2019. It's better, preferably.
But if it takes you all of 2020 to work on these things, then that means 2021 will be better.
Exactly. Definitely make sure that you're measuring your progress by you.
Yes.
By and what it is that you can do.
The way it's written, each week you get to do a check-in so that you can see, am I doing this? Because there's science behind the fact that it takes 21 days to make, break, or change a habit. And so it's laid out that way for you in the book on, all right, for 3 weeks, I'm doing something each week to build on the week before. So by the end of that 3-week mark, and when you're rolling into week 4, you have noticeable change, and then you can keep going forward with, all right, this is the new me.
I like that. So one of the things that I always ask everyone that comes onto the platform is, in this journey, what has been a blunder for you? So looking back, what can you look at specifically and say, okay, that wasn't the best idea?
I have to be self-aware and be honest. For me, it was aligning my brand with people that I hadn't really spent time to build a relationship with and build enough trust. And so the blunders were around partnering with people who were asking more of me than I was willing to give, or even if they were willing to give back to me in order to make something happen. So that
part. That part, because it can be very damaging. And a lot of times when we think about how we see ourselves, the mirror that we're looking into, guys, you got to be careful, because some of these are funhouse mirrors. Some of the communities that are out there, some of the coaching that's out there, it's a funhouse mirror. So it'll make you feel good, and you might laugh and giggle, but it's not giving you a true depiction of who you are. And therefore it makes you incapable of really doing some self-awareness and some changes, because you're like, oh no, I'm good. Look, I saw myself in the mirror and I was okay.
Yep.
And it's like, you may need to look in a different mirror.
Or you realize the mirror you were looking at, or the lens that you were looking through to even see this mirror, was a lens of, I don't feel good enough. So when I don't feel good enough, now I'm doing extra work that I really didn't even have to do to prove to an imaginary person that you are in the right spot, or that this is the right thing you need to be aligned with.
That speaks volumes. One of the things that I found in this journey for me was that when I wasn't aligned with the people that literally that God had wanted me to be aligned with, that was the times where I would launch stuff. There would be nothing, crickets. It would be the times where I would go to events and I wouldn't get any type of return on the investment of me going to the events. And it was a struggle. It really was. And I think a lot of times we as authors, we as speakers, these are the things that we don't really discuss, because we're just like, oh no, maybe it was just me.
Right. When if you take a moment to look back, you'll see that you were in a lens and looking through a space of, you were not right with yourself. Therefore, you allowed people to let these funhouse mirrors be what you saw.
Exactly.
And so definitely making sure that whatever you decide to do in your career, that it is aligned with your vision. And if it's not, take a moment to step back and ask yourself some questions to make sure it is. And be okay if the answer shows up that no, you shouldn't, that's not where you need to be. That's not what it is. Even though it looks good, even though it sounds right, if it's not lined up with what you're trying to do, you have to be honest with yourself enough to not do it. And that's something I tell all of my clients. At least be honest with yourself. If you're not going to be honest with the public, that's on you. But at least every night you need to be able to do a check to say, I was honest and true to myself today.
Right, because that honesty is
but I was honest and true to myself today.
Yeah, like that honesty is going to take you a whole lot further than any like, any engagement, anything else. That honesty with yourself and saying, okay, did I do what I said I wanted to do?
Yes.
Show up the way I needed to show up, and that's that. You know, it's okay to be authentic. It's okay to be unique. It's okay. It's okay to, let's be honest, it's okay to want to fit into, some type of community. Nobody wants to really do this alone.
Yeah.
But just make sure that it's the right community.
And make sure you're doing it for the right reasons.
Ooh, that part.
Yeah. And they got to be aligned with you and true to you. But sabotage will have you thinking that you don't know what you're talking about. So that's that imposter syndrome. You don't know. You don't have enough skills. You haven't taken enough trainings. You don't know. So, either don't do it or go do something too fast. So that's how imposter syndrome starts to show up with people, especially in the business of speaking or being an author or any of that.
I found that out the hard way.
Yeah.
And then I was having conversations with people and they were going, I didn't know you knew all that. I didn't know that you had where did you get all this information? And I'm like, guys, I am coming with wisdom, and I don't boast about every single thing that I've done. I don't boast about all the that I've taken. I've taken numerous classes. I said, listen, as a kinship parent, there's specific classes that you have to take, but then there's other ones that are offered. So I know all types of different information. And then I am a research-aholic. So I'm always finding out information. And even a conversation that, somebody was having with me, this was the funny. Somebody would ask me, they were like, oh, I don't shop at Aldi's because Aldi's is cheap. And I said, well, what makes you say that? Mm-hmm. And got into a conversation. I said, well, Aldi's is actually a very good company. I said, and they're a very smart company, which is why they're still around. I said, all of their stuff is all natural. And they sell a lot of organic and all natural things. I said, it's a set of brothers. The one brother has one has I think the northern half, the other brother,
Mhm.
southern half. I said, but outside of that, look at their model for how they set up their business. They're able to pay their employees more because the things are in boxes. You
Yep.
look at boxes and thought that they were just being cheap.
Yeah.
They putting their money where their mouth is. They
Yep.
know it takes you less time for me to just cut open a hole on a box or pull apart the thing off the box and sit a box on top of another box, as opposed to me having to go and make sure it's all in the shelves. Also, if it's in the box, then I know the date that it expires. I don't have to go through each one. I'm like, the smart
Yep.
concept.
Yeah.
And the person was like mesmerized because they were like, I never knew. First of all, they were like, how did you know?
Yeah.
So never discredit yourself. Understand the value that you bring
Yep.
when you're coming to the table. And it took me a good 3 years to really understand the power and the wisdom and the information that I was bringing to the table for my clients, for myself, for my family. And once I understood that, then you will not allow yourself to be aligned with people who are going to devalue you.
Yep. You will walk into the room boldly.
That's it.
And you will create tables. If there's not a table already there, you will create a table.
You better say that.
That's what happens when you get out of your way and stop self-sabotage. You can do those things. And you can even have conversations with yourself or others that says, you know what, I wasn't in a good space when I made that decision. And instead of spending months beating yourself up about it, you can say, but now I know, and I can go forward the way I need to.
That forgiveness.
Yeah, that's what happens when you work on not sabotaging yourself.
Oh my goodness. I'm absolutely loving this conversation, but I want to make sure that everybody knows how they can get in contact with you and how they can get the book as well.
Yes. So the book is available on Amazon. It's called Get Out of Your Own Way, 21 Days to Stop Self-Sabotage. It's also available from me directly on my website, which is Brittany A. Johnson, LMHC.com. I can be found on Facebook and Instagram at Brittany A. Johnson, LMHC. And I'm also on LinkedIn as Brittany A. Johnson as well.
I absolutely love it. Guys, you know that we bring you these topics and conversations because we want you to elevate in what you are doing as a speaker or an author. And sometimes it seems a little more difficult than what it really is. Sometimes it's just having the right conversation and showing up and being connected to the right person. So if you are saying that, you know what, I'm starting to see where I have self-sabotaged, now is the time for you to get started on it. You don't have to wait until January 1st. Go ahead, connect with Brittany because you definitely want what it is that she has. Not just that, can I tell y'all something? She is such an awesome person to talk to. I know Brittany personally. She's in our accountability community. And when I tell you, just very open and honest, she lays it all out there. And there's a reason. It's because she wants to see you grow. You know, there's so many other people that they'll just talk just to hear themselves speak. But Brittany, she wants to see you grow. That's why she's in the industry she's in. She wants to see you grow. She wants to see you change, because the reality is no matter what, your success is what matters.
Yes. Your success, keyword.
That's it. You got to be careful about that, because you'll connect with some people that are more worried about their success.
Yeah, and what you can do for their success.
Come on. Yeah. So we appreciate you. Thank you to all of our listeners and viewers that always catch us. We appreciate you guys. Without the Speak Easy podcast audience, there would be no Speak Easy podcast. Make sure that you go to bit.ly/Speak Easy Podcast Show and leave us a review. We want to know how this episode resonated with you, or maybe you didn't like it. We want to know. Give us the details. With that being said, I appreciate you guys. And until next time, don't forget to pass it out. See ya.